They sent her the way people send a punchline, not a person. A shove of laughter, a chorus of snickers, boots scraping the dirt as the boys leaned against the fence and watched her start down the long road toward the far barn. The sun was dipping low, staining the sky with orange and dust, and someone called out, "Don't forget to scream." Another voice added, "That horse eats girls like her for breakfast." She kept walking anyway, shoulders rounded, hands clenched around the strap of her worn bag. She had learned long ago that answering cruelty only fed it. Everyone in town knew the barn at the edge of the ranch. It stood alone, boards darkened by time, the air around it sharp with the smell of hay and old fear. Inside was the horse, huge, scarred, eyes too knowing. He had thrown men twice her size, snapped ropes, and bitten anyone who came too close. No one called him by his real name anymore. They just called him Trouble. Sending her there wasn't about the horse. It was about reminding her where the town thought she belonged. As she walked, memories followed her like shadows. The whispered jokes at school. The way customers at the diner stared when she squeezed past tables. The pity disguised as advice. Eat less, smile more, take up less space. She had learned to move quietly through the world, but inside her lived a steady patience, the kind that grows when you are forced to wait for kindness that rarely comes. The barn door creaked when she pushed it open. The sound echoed, and the horse answered with a sharp snort and a stomp that rattled the boards. Her heart jumped, but she didn't run. She stood still, letting her eyes adjust to the dim light, to the massive shape shifting in the stall. Dust floated in the air like tiny stars. She could smell the animal, warm, powerful, afraid. "I won't hurt you," she said softly, though her voice trembled. She reached into her bag and pulled out an apple, setting it on the ground rather than offering it from her hand. She remembered how it felt to be cornered by stares and expectations, how fear made everything sharper. She sat down in the straw, dress spreading around her, uncaring of the dirt. Her weight sank into the earth, grounding her. The horse paced, ears flat, muscles tight as coiled wire. She didn't look him straight in the eye. Instead, she talked, to the quiet, to the space between them. She spoke about the diner, about burning pies and early mornings, about how loneliness felt heavier at night. Her words weren't commands, they were confessions. Slowly, the horse's breathing changed. The frantic edge softened into something deeper, slower. Outside, the laughter had faded. The town had already turned back, satisfied with the joke. Inside the barn, a girl everyone underestimated sat with a horse everyone feared, and for the first time that day, neither of them felt alone. The cowboy noticed the quiet before he saw her. From the porch of his house, he was used to hearing the barn long before dusk, the scrape of hooves, the angry thud of wood, the warning sounds that kept men away. That evening, the air lay strangely still. No crashing, no shouting, just the soft rustle of wind through dry grass. He frowned, set his coffee down, and walked toward the barn with long, cautious steps. He hadn't agreed to the joke. He'd been in town when someone mentioned sending the girl out there, laughter thick in their voices. He'd said nothing then, tired of fighting small-town cruelty that never seemed to end. But now, as he drew closer and heard a low, unfamiliar sound, humming, his pace slowed. It wasn't loud or confident. It was gentle, almost shy, like someone singing to themselves when they thought no one was listening. He stopped at the door and watched through a crack in the wood. The sight rooted him in place. The girl sat on the straw, her back to the wall, hands resting loosely in her lap. His horse stood a few steps away, not lunging, not rearing, but watching her. Truly watching. The animal's ears were forward, his head lowered just enough to show curiosity instead of threat. The cowboy's chest tightened. He had tried everything with that horse. Firm hands, patience, distance, training methods passed down for generations. Nothing had worked like this quiet presence. She spoke again, her words too soft to catch, but her tone carried something familiar. Not authority, understanding. The cowboy felt a flicker of shame for all the times he'd assumed strength had to be loud. He pushed the door open slowly, careful not to break the fragile piece inside. The girl startled, rising halfway before she recognized him. "I'm sorry," she said quickly, already bracing for blame. "I'll go if you want." "I didn't mean to." "You didn't do anything wrong," he said, surprising both of them. His voice sounded rough, unused to gentleness. He held up a hand, not toward her, but toward the horse, who shifted but didn't bolt. I just didn't expect this. He stepped inside, keeping his distance. Up close, he could see the horse's scars, the old burns and rope marks that mirrored something in the girl's eyes, an understanding of what it meant to be mishandled, misunderstood. The realization struck him hard. Maybe the horse hadn't needed taming. Maybe he'd needed someone who knew how it felt to be hurt and blamed for it. The light faded as evening settled in. The cowboy cleared his throat. It's getting late. You can rest in the tack room if you want. It's warm. He expected her to refuse, to apologize again. Instead, she nodded, relief washing over her face like she'd been holding her breath all day. He brought her coffee in a chipped mug and sat on an overturned crate nearby, saying nothing. Silence stretched, comfortable now. Outside, the stars began to prick the sky. Inside the barn, the cowboy watched his horse stand calm for the first time in years, and he knew the joke had ended. Whatever this was, this quiet miracle, he wasn't sending it away. Morning came slow and pale, the kind of dawn that slipped into the barn without asking permission. The girl woke to the sound of breathing that wasn't angry or afraid, just steady and close. For a moment, she panicked, then remembered where she was. The horse stood near the stall gate, head lowered, as if standing watch. Straw clung to her dress, and her back ached from sleeping on the narrow bench in the tack room, but there was a strange peace in her chest she hadn't felt in years. She stepped out quietly, not wanting to startle him. The cowboy was already there, boots planted in the dirt, coffee steaming in his hand. He nodded at her like she belonged. That simple gesture did more than any apology the town had ever offered. She picked up a brush from the wall and waited, letting the horse decide. After a long breath, he stepped closer. She brushed slow and careful, murmuring thanks under her breath, as if gratitude itself were a language the horse understood. By mid-morning, word had spread. People drifted down the road, pretending curiosity wasn't disbelief. They expected a story of chaos, injuries, damage, proof that the joke had gone too far. Instead, they saw the horse calm in the sun, the girl beside him, and the cowboy leaning against the fence with an expression no one could read. Whispers rippled through the crowd, unsure, uncomfortable. The joke had lost its teeth. Someone laughed nervously and said, "Guess she worked her magic." The cowboy straightened. "She didn't," he replied evenly. "She worked patience." His voice carried, and the crowd fell quiet. He turned to the girl. "You don't have to go back if you don't want to." Her hand stilled on the brush. No one had ever offered her a choice like that before. Not pity, not charity, a choice. She looked at the barn, the horse, the open land beyond. She thought of the diner's clatter, the stairs, the smallness of her rented room. "I'd like to stay," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. The days that followed settled into a rhythm. She learned the ranch, the work, the way the cowboy spoke little but noticed everything. He watched her with a respect that never turned into judgment. The horse followed her like a shadow, calm and willing, as if recognizing a shared survival. People came by less often. When they did, they looked at her differently, not as the punchline, but as part of the place. One evening, as the sun sank behind the hills, the cowboy handed her the reins. "You belong here," he said simply. She smiled, not the careful smile she wore in town, but a real one, full and unguarded. The barn glowed in the fading light, and for the first time, home wasn't a word she whispered in hope. It stood solid around her, chosen, earned, and finally hers.